Candidates are going head-to-head in another debate this hour. Here's a live shot as things get underway tonight. It's being co-hosted by TMU, United Way of Greater Toronto, and the Toronto Star. And we're focused on social and economic challenges facing the city. Candidates polling with 5% or more support were invited to participate. Anna Bilau, Brad Bradford, Olivia Chow, Mitzi Hunter, Josh Matlow, and Mark Saunders are attending. It'll be moderated by Toronto Star city columnist Edward Keenan, and we will have special coverage afterwards with a political panel. And tonight's mayoral debate is just getting underway. Let's listen.
Good evening and welcome to Our Future, Our Vote, a Toronto for All, a mayoral debate hosted by the Toronto Star, the United Way, and Toronto Metropolitan University. My name is Edward Keenan. I'm a city columnist at the Star, and I'll be the moderator of tonight's debate. I'd like to thank all of you who've joined us here at Toronto Metropolitan University in person, and those watching on television and online, and especially the 6 mayoral candidates who have joined us tonight. In this unexpected election, we find the city at an important crossroads, facing many urgent issues that we'll be discussing tonight. And a lot of potential mayors seem to feel that urgency. There are 102 candidates, many of them worthy of consideration and attention, far more than we could fit on this stage or give a fair listen to. To make the debate manageable, we used an average of polls in a predetermined period to select 6 of the top candidates to invite. All 6 of them accepted, and they're here with us tonight. They are, in an order determined by a random draw earlier this evening, former Police Chief Mark Saunders, former Member of Provincial Parliament Mitzi Hunter, City Councillor Josh Matlow, former City Councillor and Member of Federal Parliament Olivia Chow, current City Councillor Brad Bradford, and former City Councillor Anna Bilau. Tonight, these candidates are going to field questions from me and from members of our community, and they'll have 1 minute to respond to each question. In the middle of that, we'll have a segment where each candidate is invited to ask one of the other candidates a question, and they'll have a bit of a chance to go back and forth on that. The candidates agreed to a format in advance of this debate, and they know the rules. Before we get into it, I'd like to remind everyone that we're here as a community to hear from these candidates for mayor, so I'd ask members of the audience to be respectful of them and of each other who have come to listen to them in hearing them out without disruption or interruption. So, let's get to it. Candidates, you've already participated in a number of debates and introduced yourselves to the city, so we're going to launch right into our first question. Toronto right now feels like a city with a lot of pressing, urgent issues, some on the verge of an emergency. As you've spoken to Torontonians in this campaign, and I suppose probably listened to them too, what has emerged for you as the single most pressing issue facing the city right now? And why are you the best candidate to address that? We'll start with you, Mark.
Great. And first off, thank you so much to TMU. Thank you, Toronto Star. And most importantly, to United Way for all that they have done. I've worked with them and had the privilege of seeing amazing success stories. So I have been knocking on doors time after time. And the #1 pressing issue that I have heard over and over again, north, south, east, or west, has been public safety, especially safety on the subway systems. People will talk randomly at the fact that they will not use the subway because they are concerned about their safety, whether going to or from work or to and from school. I bring to the table experienced leadership. I know that the way to keep our city safe is collaboratively, understanding the root cause that causes the violent acts and making sure that they're dealt with. This month alone, there have been close to 2,000 assaults, most of them random. It is the randomness and the disorder that needs to be looked after, and we know that there are ties with people that live with mental health. I will have a coordinated effort in making sure that your city is working well and safe by utilizing all of those entities collectively to create the proper solutions.
Thank you. Mitzi, same question.
Thank you, Ed, and good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here. And as I have been traveling across the city in all 4 quadrants of our city, the thing that I hear consistently is about affordability. That this city it's really where people are concerned that those who grow up here may not even be able to afford to live in the city that they love. And so affordability is the #1 cross-cutting issue that I hear about. And I've put forward in response to that a comprehensive plan that starts with building more affordable housing, that looks at getting Toronto moving by making sure that our public transit system is working and serving the needs of people. And I absolutely agree that safety is important, safety on TTC and safety in and around the community. But leadership does matter, and I bring to this debate and to this campaign the broadest set of experience in business, in community, and at the cabinet table. And that's why I'm running to be your mayor.
Thank you, Mitzi. Josh Matlow.
I'm Josh Matlow, and I'm running to make a city that works. I hear from residents from every corner of this city that they want a city that is safe, that is affordable and livable, meaning that we are frustrated that services have been allowed to decline because too many political leaders have artificially suppressed our tax rate. They have not been honest with us about what it takes to balance the budget, and we need to actually get real about the problems that we face so we can fix them. Now, I know that, there are some people here who have more name recognition and a big party machine behind them. There are others who have corporate lobbyists leading their campaigns, and there are others who actually have Doug Ford supporting their campaign. I don't have any of that, but I do have the support of Torontonians because we work together on getting things done, and I know that if we work together from the community up, we can build this city the way that we know it can be. I believe a better Toronto is better, and that's why I'm running for mayor.
Thank you. I have to say, so far, I'm very impressed with the candidates observing the time limits. It's a trend I'd like to see going forward. Olivia Chow.
Yeah. Sometime in April, I heard from some Somali mothers who have lost their children from gun violence. And they want to build hope in their neighborhood. Just like all of us, they want better living conditions and more social support. But even in tough and painful times, they stick to this saying that if we come together, we can heal the crack in the sky. And yes, we are seeing, after 10 years of neglect, cracks not just on city streets, but in the social safety net. City Hall has stopped building strong neighborhoods and strong communities. It doesn't seem to care anymore. Let's reverse that. Together, let's build a city that is caring, affordable, and safe, where everyone feels they belong.
All right, thank you. Brad Bradford.
Thanks very much, Ed, and thank you all for being here tonight. It really is an honor to join you and engage in this important civic discussion. I've been hearing from Torontonians for months and months, and you know what they tell me? They tell me that they're tired of waiting. They're tired of waiting for affordable childcare in their neighborhoods. They're tired of waiting for the Gardner to be rebuilt. They're tired of waiting for more affordable housing. They're tired of waiting for the Eglinton Crosstown to open. And it comes back to the endless debate, deferral, and delay that has been so characteristic of yesterday's leaders and City Hall at Toronto. I'm running to be a strong mayor of action, someone who is going to take action on the files that matter most to you: affordability, community safety, and unlocking the gridlock that has ground this city to a halt. We shouldn't ask people to wait any longer. We should listen to communities and deliver results that will make a real difference in their day-to-day lives. That's why I'm running for mayor.
Thank you. All right, and Anna Bailau, the most pressing issue in the city as you hear it.
Thank you. What I've been hearing over the last few months, every time my family gets together, I have a working family, it's about affordability. What I've heard at the doors, it's about affordability, affordable housing and affordability for our families. People are struggling out there. Everything is going up, and they're still having a hard time. And so is our city. We still have an affordability issue in our city because we have a $1.5 billion budget deficit in our city. And some candidates will tell you that the way to deal with this is to increase taxes. And other candidates will say, no, 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 we're just going to cut services. That's the way to deal with this. Well, they're not being honest with you. There's no way that taxes, which would mean a 39% property tax increase, will solve this issue. There's no way that you're going to find a $1.5 billion cuts it for our systems with our programs. What we need is a mayor with the experience to work with council, with the other orders of government. I have the experience. I have the track record. I won't take no for an answer. I will always stand up for the city like I did before, and will do it as the next mayor.
All right. Now, some of you mentioned it here. We've heard a lot about it in this campaign. The crisis in affordability of housing in this city, up and down the income spectrum, is emerged as a big issue, but perhaps the big issue in the city right now in this campaign. In surveys of our service partners, organizations, users, and students, housing was overwhelmingly, by many multiples, the most common area of concern. We have heard a lot from each of you about your plans to build new housing and allow it to be built, and that's very important. But this is a city where roughly half of people are tenants, and rental housing, especially affordable and deeply affordable rental housing, has actually been disappearing. So rent controls and other protections are eroding. So how do you propose to protect the existing supply of affordable rentals while also increasing the supply, protect tenants, and otherwise making living in the city even possible for renters? Mitzi Hunter, we'll start with you on this one.
Thank you, Ed. And you know, every time I travel along Kingston Road, I go by one of the motels that my mom and I went to visit a friend who had become homeless with her and her two sons. And it was there that my mom offered her to come and live with us. And we just created space. Affordable housing is such an urgent crisis in our city right now. And without question, we need to build more supply that is affordable and deeply affordable. And as you've said, that we need to protect the existing stock of rental housing. I've actually taken a page from the United Way's vertical poverty, committed to boosting funding for tower renewal, not just for the greenhouse gas emissions aspects, but also for the quality of life aspects. And this is something that we have to do. We have to build more affordable housing for more people, and I have a plan to do just that.
Thank you, Mitzi Hunter. Josh Matlow.
I hear from people every day, literally, who tell me that they can't afford to live in this city, young and older adults alike. I have a plan to build on public properties, city lots, underutilized buildings, and we're going to be investing in building both deeply affordable housing and below market, along with market. And because it's city property, we're going to be able to have rent control. Even though Doug Ford removed rent control on new units in Ontario, we can do it on our own properties. And I'm determined, frankly, to get that done. I also want to ensure that renters have more protections, that people who are on our streets have rental supplements to be able to have access to a home. I want to improve the shelter system so that they are genuinely safe. It's not good enough to say that they're safe indoor spaces. People in the parks and on our streets need to know they've got a safe place to go on a path toward housing. What I will not do is sit passively by while Doug Ford believes that the answer to housing is to sell off our greenbelt to his donors.
Thank you, Josh Matlow. Olivia Chow.
When I immigrated with my mom and dad when I was 13, we were able to rent a decent, affordable housing in St. Jamestown. Only with one salary of my mom as a hotel maid. Life is so much more unaffordable now. What we need to do is to prevent eviction, because what we're seeing is that we're losing rental housing 14 times faster than we can build. So to prevent eviction is that the City of Toronto, with me as the mayor, will provide financial and social support. We will help fight the illegal actions by bad landlords, support the tenants by helping them get together to own their apartment buildings, by fixing it, by making it into a cooperative or a land trust. We will have a City Hall renter's back.
Thank you, Olivia. Brad Bradford?
Thanks very much. You know, I grew up in Hamilton, and when I first moved to Toronto, I moved into multi-tenant housing, rooming housing. And that was the most affordable place for me to live. And, you know, for years, the endless debate, deferral, and delay at City Hall made that illegal. Since I've become the chair of planning and housing, we have legalized multi-tenant housing, stood up a framework to protect to protect tenants and make it safer. We've also legalized multiplex housing, so we have more apartments in more neighborhoods, more options for people. And that's really what it comes down to. There are folks on this stage that are going to tell you they will build more bureaucracy to build more housing. But the answer is we need to improve supply. We took decades off of building housing here in this city, rental housing, and we need to make it easier to facilitate housing outcomes. Speed up the timelines, create a culture of yes, and make sure that housing is the #1 priority so people have more options to live. Because I don't want folks who are here in Toronto to have to move to Hamilton.
Thank you, Brad. Anna Bailau.
Thank you. I'm thrilled that we're talking about housing. For so many years that I've been at City Hall, this has not been a priority. And finally, we're having debates, entire debates about housing and making sure that we're actually acting on it. And Councillor Bradford, thank you for making sure that the work that I started get completely very shortly after I left on the rooming houses and the multiplexes.
I got it done.
We needed, well, you skipped. Maybe because you skipped the vote before, but we need to protect tenants. We need to protect tenants, and that's why I will triple the amount of funds in our rent bank. That is why we will have an anti-displacement unit to fight rent evictions, and that is why I will put a freeze on rental demolitions while we do a citywide review. We need to build more housing and more purpose-built rental. My plan we'll build 57,000 units of purpose-built rental. We need to make sure that the math works, that we have the planning regime for incentivize. We need rental zoning, and we need to make sure that we work with the nonprofits.
Anna, thank you. There we go.
You know, when I first moved into Toronto, when I was paying rent, I was paying about 70% of my money towards rent. But I look at today, in the situation that we're in right now, everybody here is responsible for what's happening. The supply has been an issue. There's been a lot of talking, a lot of planning, but no delivery. They're building at a point of 1.8%. The target was 40,000 affordable houses within 10 years. That has not happened. They were moving at 1.8%. We need to make sure that we look at the process, because no one's talking about the process because they put their hands up for the process. The red tape that has been involved, where it takes 3 to 5 years on average. Independent reviews have scored Toronto as last, which means builders and developers are moving elsewhere. We have to create the environment so that we can build and we can increase the supply. When we talk about people paying almost double the amount of rent right now, it's because there hasn't been enough places built. My plan is simple, to make sure I cut the red tape, have these processes done under a year so that we can build and create more opportunities, because building is about hope as well as places to live in.
All right, and Mitzi Hunter.
Well, you know, the conversation that we're having right now has to really put the person who is living in those units at the center of that.
No, okay. I'm sorry, did you answer this question already?
I did.
Yeah.
But I was happy to have another round.
I thought so.
Go for it.
Why not?
So if you're scoring the debate at home, that's a -1 for me. You will get a chance on the next one as well. So
that's okay.
sorry about that. All right. Our next question, which we'll move to now, comes via video from a member of our community.
Who's starting?
My name is Karthika Adhavan, and I'm a resident of Scarborough. And I take the public transit to work and back regularly. And what I'm noticing now is that the services are delayed, and there is less buses than there used to be, so there are more delays between one bus to the other. Now, work-life balance is something that we talk about now. And I'm a mother, I have 2 children, and I also had my elderly mom live with me. So in that case, for me to spend more time in the street waiting for the bus, or waiting for the bus that connects again, or experiencing the delays that there are, I'm not going to have a proper work-life balance in that case. So my question is, what is the plan to make the public transit system more reliable for people like me who can depend on it, and then it is also accessible to everyone?
All right, for this question, we're going to start with Josh Matlow.
The TTC must become affordable, reliable, and safe. And I have a plan to focus on that. One of the first things I'm going to do is ensure that we reverse those stupid cuts, those unfair cuts that the majority of council supported. And the reason I call it stupid is because it's a really bad business model along with being unfair to riders. I mean, can you imagine if a restaurant decided to give you really crappy service and then up the price of the menu? You would never go to that restaurant. So how do we encourage ridership back on the TTC when there's more delays impacting underserved areas throughout the city? And ultimately, how are any of us more safe when we're waiting in the dark for longer to get our bus? Not only am I going to reverse the cuts to the TTC, I'm going to be investing into the TTC. I have a funded, fully costed plan to do that. And ultimately, we need to make sure that it's even more accessible by expansion throughout our city in an evidence-based way that we know we can pay for.
Thank you. Olivia Chow.
Hey, how many of you took TTC here? Were you? Oh, wow! See, were you worried that you might be late? Right? We need to make sure that it's reliable and fast and safe. The provincial and the federal government hasn't paid their transit bill. The old approach from the City of Toronto is not working. They raise the fares and cut the services, right? So together we can make TTC the better way by doing things a different way. I'll reverse the cuts, invest in TTC, get the customers back, and then also invest in Wheel-Trans to make it faster, to more reliable. And also, we need to make TTC safer by hiring more staff, more eyes on the platform. I'll keep Scarborough moving when the Scarborough RT closes by creating a dedicated busway along the RT corridor, saving Scarborough residents 20 minutes a day.
Thank you. Brad Bradford.
You know what, our TTC transit system is in fact the third largest transit network in North America. And we don't get a nickel from higher orders of government for operating. So what does that mean? It means there's a $1 billion subsidy from the City of Toronto, and the rest of the money is made up with fare box revenue. It's on the backs of riders, and that's expensive. But the number one reason why people aren't taking the TTC right now is because they don't feel safe. We heard from Samir at George Brown College last week, and he just said, I am not riding transit because I don't want to risk it anymore. We saw videos yesterday online of people lighting off fireworks on a bus. The transit system is in chaos. I have a plan to restore confidence and safety to the TTC, starting with installing the platform edge doors that we have been talking about for 13 years at City Hall. Unacceptable delays, making sure that we have mental health supports for people who need help when and where they need it on the system. A comprehensive plan to restore ridership to the TTC and make sure everyone can take transit safely.
Thank you. Anna Bailao.
Ed, when I arrived in Toronto, I was 15 years old, and I had a part-time job with my mom and downtown. And we would take the subway home around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and we would feel safe. It was actually our opportunity to connect. It was our time to talk to each other. And when I hear these questions, I say, what are the choices that we have? And we have two choices right now. We can keep cutting service because the ridership is not there, or what I choose is to invest in the service, to make sure that we have safety, we have reliability, and we have convenience. Bringing back staff and redeploying staff from constables to more supervisors, to people, eyes and ears on our stations to make sure that we have safety. Restore the services so people can get to work on time, can pick up their kids from daycare on time. Have more cameras, have Wi-Fi with all carriers for once. We need to make sure that we have the services that is safe, reliable, and convenient. That's how we're going to attract the riders back to the TTC.
Thank you. Mark Saunders?
Thank you. And I'll answer the question. The question is specifically Scarborough. Scarborough has the highest rate of newcomers in the country. 74% of Scarborough are visible minorities. When you deny access to subway or transportation by public access, you're denying their lifeline to get to and from work, to get to and from events, to get back home to their families. You have to measure differently, not just on ridership, but on value as well, and how important it is when it comes to the day-to-day processes. The security piece, I was the chief of police. I have the best plan, so I don't need to go any further on that. But what we have to do is build. We have to build the proper infrastructure, and we have to build because we have to understand that we're going to have over 500,000 people coming into Toronto before 2031. We have to make sure that government creates the proper level field for those newcomers that are coming here, and they will be coming here, to success, so that they can live that Canadian dream, which is so important, especially when I came into Canada. It is the same dream that so many people are coming to Toronto to have as well.
Thank you. Okay, and now Mitzi, I know you haven't answered this one yet, so Mitzi.
But I want to answer this question because public transit is something that I believe wholeheartedly in. I've run in 4 straight elections in Scarborough, and this has always been a central part of every campaign, making sure that we can keep our city moving by making these additional investments in public transit. So I've been, of course, a champion of the subways in Scarborough. I want to see more transit get built and built out right across the city. New lines like the North York Scarborough subway extension along Shepherd Avenue, building out line 4, the Pink Line. Also the Eglinton East Crosstown to Malvern. And of course, making sure that when Scarborough loses the SRT, that we have a dedicated busway to save people more time. But there are also things that we need to do right now. So I'm proposing that we make it free for seniors and Wheel-Trans users to get ridership up. Also, why not start at 5:30 a.m. instead of 6 a.m. so those shift workers can get on the system, leave their cars at home, and help out our environment as well.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our next question, which deals again with affordability. Part of affordability in a city is not just what things cost, but what services and amenities are available to you. We've been hearing a lot, just the hour, we're hearing about cuts to transit service. We've also heard a lot about threadbare public resources, public parks, recreation programs. But United Way partner agencies have also been sounding the alarm about the capacity of the nonprofit sector that delivers many services to those most in need. Demand is way up, and agencies tell us costs are way up at the same time, while funding stability is an existential question for those on the front lines helping the most marginalized in our city. So how do you, as a potential mayor, propose to ensure a high level of services for people in the city, both delivered through the government, but especially in partnership with nonprofit agencies? For this one, we're going to start with you, Olivia.
Mm-hmm. You, the nonprofit agencies, the frontline workers, the volunteers, you are the heart and soul of this city, and you do it with love. I know it. Yes, you bring fresh ideas, activate volunteers, raise funds, build stronger communities, and better sense of belonging. And yet, sometimes you're underappreciated. As your mayor, I appreciate the vital work you do. Our invest in core funding, not just project-based funding. Yes, so you can spend more time with the people you serve, rather than getting caught up with filling these very complicated application forms or struggling with a grant websites that doesn't quite work very well, I've heard. By partnering together, we can truly make Toronto a caring city. Let's do this.
Thank you. Okay, Brad Bradford.
Well, thanks very much. There are so many important organizations doing incredible work across the city, many of them receiving funding from the United Way. Time and time again, I hear from those organizations about how challenging it is to work with the city, how challenging it is to find space in the communities in which they're serving. I've seen it firsthand with the Bangladeshi community in East York. I hear it from the Tamil and Somali community today as they go through different journeys to access space. And yet the programming that they're delivering in the most diverse city of the world is culturally relevant, culturally specific programming. And over the past 3 years, we have seen, as we've come through the pandemic, the strength and the importance of our not-for-profit sector. They stepped up when we needed them to and made sure that we were able to connect with communities. So as mayor, I will remove those roadblocks so it's easier for you to do that work. And as new development projects are online, I will make sure that our not-for-profit sector has access to community space in the communities where they're operating. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna Bailau.
Thank you, and thank you to the United Way and all the nonprofit organizations that do excellent work in our city. I had the opportunity to lead with the United Way during the pandemic on regional tables to coordinate and leverage the work that nonprofits do across the city. I think that work needs to continue. As mayor, I'm looking forward to working with United Way to have that work coordinated. We need the space as well. I intend to make sure that we have space available for the nonprofits, like I've done with my community for Christie Ossington neighborhood space or creating a community hub so that they don't spend as much in operating. We also need to make sure that our shelters, which are mainly run by nonprofits, are actually supported. I will allocate $5 million so they can deal with the challenges that they're having with staff as well. Nonprofits also build a lot of housing, and their biggest challenge is in the pre-construction phase of it. I will allocate $10 million for their pre-construction plans so they can take full advantage of the land that I will make available and the federal funding that we will be making available as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. When we talk about the importance of not-for-profits, it is so critical in order to move towards what the finish line should look like for Torontonians. Specifically when we talk about homelessness and the issues, understanding that 74% of people that are homeless right now have some sort of medical issue. United Way is fantastic because I had the opportunity of working with them, and I've seen how they interact with communities. They solve community problems by working with communities specifically. By creating the environment as government to make sure that the not-for-profits have a key role in our success, it's critical. When we talk about affordable housing, when we talk about supportive housing, making sure that we use those not-for-profits to deal with the management and having the necessary supports to make quality of life increase so importantly. I've worked with them before, seen their success, know their importance, and will make sure that I do everything that I can within my power to incorporate them on a regular basis so that we can add the dignity that it needs to be restored to all members of our communities.
Thank you. All right, Mitzi?
Thank you. Thanks so much. You know, our community nonprofit organizations are really at the heart of our communities. You know, during COVID, I really saw them step up, make sure that people had food baskets, and went door to door, changed and adapted and pivoted their services to make sure that people stayed connected to services and support. I served on the board of the United Way of Greater Toronto, and actually on the board of over 100 nonprofit organizations and charities. And I just know the essential importance of this work. It's integrated right across my platform and my plan for a city that works for everyone everywhere, and that includes our nonprofit agencies. I will increase the community services partnership program so that there's more funding that are needed for things like school nutrition programs. And in terms of affordable housing, partnering with nonprofits is right at the core of what I will be doing. I visited Wood Green yesterday. They're doing fabulous work. They're doing essential work. And as mayor, I will make sure that you're funded and supported.
All right. Thank you. And finally, Josh.
I believe that we need to provide more core funding to community organizations. That should be the driver, and City Hall is the vehicle. We can open doors to ensuring that possibilities happen. Everything from working with non-for-profits in youth hubs, youth spaces to ensure vulnerable youth get the supports, whether it be trauma counseling, homework help, job training, et cetera, to be able to support their lives. I'm going to be investing into the arts and culture sector and ensuring that we have more grants for more people in diverse cultural and geographic areas of our city to ensure that people have an opportunity to work in the non-for-profits along with the rest of the arts sector to succeed in our city. I'm going to make sure that we have spaces. I'm going to be opening up libraries on Sundays that are not open. I'm going to be opening up schools after hours, weekends, and holidays to make sure that there are spaces for programming and services to provide to the local communities as hubs. We can work with the non-for-profit sector by listening to what their needs are. And I must add, I am incredibly concerned about how the food banks are telling us that they are very close to having no more to give.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our next question, which comes again via video from a member of our community.
My name is Dua Hijazi. Having had lived experience with both homelessness and mental illness, I found what worked for me was having stability. What helped me get that stability was having stable and affordable housing in a supportive environment. And as a peer trainer or a peer trained worker with the neighborhood group, I had opportunities to see others in similar situations that I have lived through, unfortunately going through a revolving door system and not getting permanent housing after they've gone through the shelter system and not getting the proper supports they need. So I would like to know, as elected mayor, what are you going to do to make sure that the programs that are said to be available for folks living with mental illness are in fact available? And how are we going to resolve the larger issue of homelessness that many are challenged with today?
It's a tough and important question, and Brad, you get the first crack at answering it.
What a powerful question, you know, and they said it perfectly. Stability. That is what people need. The stability and dignity of a roof over their head, access to employment and opportunity, and the support so that they can be successful. I had an opportunity to sit down with CAMH last week, and they echoed that exact sentiment. You know, a lot of folks who are struggling with mental health issues, first and foremost, have challenges getting access to employment and access to housing. Our shelter system, just a few years ago, had 6,000 beds. Today we have 9,000 beds, and yet they are chronically full. The answer is not more shelter beds. The answer is more housing. And that's why, as councillor, despite community opposition, I moved forward with building 59 supportive housing units in East York with the wraparound supports and partners like Wood Green to make sure that those new residents can be successful in the community. That is the way forward, and as mayor, I will stand up for supportive housing and deliver more of that across our entire city, because it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Anna Bailao.
There's nothing more foundational in somebody's life than a home. You can't really think about your health care, concentrate on how to get better if you don't know where you're going to sleep at night. That's the reality. So with homelessness, we need to prevent people from falling into homeless. And I'll repeat again, tripling the rent bank, making sure that we help people with rent evictions. We also need to assist our shelters, making sure that they have the staff and the supports. I will put $5 million into that to make sure that they have the support they need. We had an increase of victims of domestic violence as well falling into homeless during the pandemic. I will have $5 million in rent assistance as well. And right now, 1/3 of the population in our shelter system is refugees. The federal government needs to take care of that, not with a check at the end of the year, but with proper housing for that. We need more supportive housing. That is the answer. The answer is more supportive housing. So providing more land, providing the opportunity for our nonprofits to make sure that we're building with the $10 million for the pre-construction funding, so we have the supportive housing, which is ultimately the answer.
Thank you. Mark Saunders.
Thank you. So working and delivering public service for 38 years, the one thing that I've seen over and over again is the portfolio dealing with people that live with mental health has never been looked after properly. Mental health is health. But in this particular case, it is about having every entity and every strand from every city agency to be at the table immediately. That is why, as mayor, what I will do is I'll create the mayor's wellness circle. Everyone has to come to the table to see how they can participate, public, private, all levels of government. If we are collective in dealing with this situation, we will have successful results. But right now, it has always been Band-Aid solutions. That is my #1 promise. I will deal with it properly. I will deal with it holistically, because I have seen the harm that it has caused by dealing with it the way that it has been, ignoring it when it's really happening 24 hours a day. And right now, city government does not look after it well. On top of that, I'll make sure that there is funding, that we create tuitions, free tuitions for people that work within the industry and that go to college in the city of Toronto, so we can have more resources available to deal with that issue head on. Thank you.
All right, Mitzi?
Yeah, so we know that homelessness is a crisis in our city, and I've committed to ending homelessness. I've signed the pledge. You know, this is shameful in our city to see people who are living in our parks, on our TTC, and on the streets. And so we've got to act now with urgency. I will add 400 shelter beds because the reality is that people are living in temporary hotels, and some of those hotels are saying we want to take back our facility. And so people are at risk of going onto the street and becoming chronically homeless. In addition to that, I would add more supportive housing units, acquire those rapidly so that people can transition into permanent homes. And from a mental health perspective, we have to coordinate that better. It is not a core responsibility of the city. It's really a provincial health issue. But as a city, we have to act when people are hurting, and I will do that.
Thank you. Josh.
No, I once believed that homeless people must have, whether it be an addiction or a mental health challenge, and some do. But I learned from people like Kathy Crow and Zoe Dodd and Diana Chan McNally and experts on the ground that the real answer to homelessness is a home. And if people have access to a dependable and reliable roof over their head, they will be able to be better able to address the challenges that they face. And if we're honest with ourselves, we all know people who are middle class who have addiction or mental health challenges, but because they have a home, they have a stronger base either to hide it or to at least function with it. It's hard for everyone. But to simply just call the shelter system that we have now safe, indoor spaces, when the people who've been in our parks and on our streets do not feel safe isn't good enough. We need to improve those environments, improve the capacity. And as we improve those Band-Aid solutions, ensure that we have a pathway to housing, and I have that plan. And unlike many of the other candidates, it's actually costed and I can pay for it.
Thank you. All right, Olivia?
My dad has serious mental health issues, and I often thought that had I not been able to help him, intervene, he probably would have been homeless. That's why we need a city hall that would support people, and that's why I talked about the anti-eviction plan earlier on. But if the person does get evicted, we need a 24/7 respite center and access center so this person can, because the person is in crisis mode, can have a meal, a shower, get their ID, get back on their feet, find shelter, find support, find comfort. And then, of course, the shelter is full. That's why we need 1,000 units of rent supplement so people can move into apartments right now and have a wraparound service to support them so they can stay housed. We need to do that right now.
Thank you. All right, we are going to mix things up a bit. In this next section of the debate, each candidate is going to have the opportunity to pose a question to one of their fellow candidates. They'll have 30 seconds to ask their question. The person they ask will have 1 minute to respond. The person who asked the question will then have 1 minute to respond to the response, ask a follow-up, or offer their own take on it. And then the person who they asked will then have 30 seconds to, offer a rebuttal to that response. And then we'll move on. So for this head-to-head face-off section, Anna Bailao, you get to go first.
Okay. My question is to Olivia Chow. Olivia, Toronto is facing an affordability crisis. You've already announced about $400 million in new taxes, but you have provided no clarity on property taxes. You said you're ready to tax. So for a senior on fixed income, for a young family that just bought their home, how much property taxes should Torontonians be ready to pay under your watch?
So if I heard the question properly, what is the percentage? I don't think that's the right question. The question really should be, what kind of service are we prepared to put in? We start doing the budget with the people at the center. That is what we need to do, is not just pick a number, because we don't know how much the federal and the provincial government is going to provide for us. We don't know what the inflation is going to be next year in March. So to just pick a number, I don't think that is a fair way to do it. Let me pick one number. Speaking about number, 0. 0 shovel in the ground under your Housing Now program. And the person beside me said, Mr. Bradford said, is a Housing Never program. And let me tell you another number. 90,000, that's the number of households that is on the waiting list because there's a decade that we did not build any affordable housing. That needs to stop.
All right. Anna, you now have a minute.
You know, let's go back to the question, because I think I'm the one asking the question here, and I still didn't get an answer for the question, and we keep not getting an answer to the question. I understand the NDP policy of tax and spending, and you know, I just want to make sure that you're transparent with Torontonians. You know, I wish you were listening in on the teletown hall I had yesterday. I had a 90-year-old senior that said, I'm about to lose my home. I live here, I've lived here for 67 years in Willowdale. My husband is 94. I'm having a really tough time affording my property taxes, the health care of my husband. You know, how much, Olivia? How much is Peggy, her name was Peggy, how much is Peggy's tax going to go up? I think it's fair that Torontonians know. I think you need to, is it 10%, is it 15%? What's the top? What is your limit? Because for services, just to fill the budget hole, you need 39% property tax increase if you're going to do just that on property tax. So you need to come forward and say, what is the ceiling?
Okay. And Olivia, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I've already said very clearly that is a modest tax increase. You and I know there's a senior program that exempts the person you're talking about so that they don't have to pay the increase. Come on, Anna, you know that program. And I will continue with that program, seriously. And on top of that, let me tell you, there is another program in Toronto.
And what is modest for you might not be modest for a lot of people in the city of Toronto.
Hang on,
that is the reality.
I thought I had the
you have
30
3 or
seconds.
4 seconds here?
Yeah, I thought I had the 30 seconds. Yeah.
No, you had...
Yes. Back to the different programs that support people with lower income.
All right, that's it now.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
There is a program like that in the city of Toronto, and it's very fair.
Okay, so now we come down here. Mark Saunders,
I'm number 3.
Anna asked the first one. I think you asked the second one now.
Oh. You know what?
It's your chance.
You got it right. I got it wrong. Okay. All right. You know what? I just I didn't get clarity, so I'm going to ask you again, Ms. Chow. This is a debate, and this is all about affordability. You yourself have said affordability has been the biggest issue.
Yes.
I find that public safety is the big issue, but second is the affordability. You've said in your plan that you will be dealing with property taxes. You'll be raising property taxes. Your history, you've been in a political body since 1985. You haven't given a number to the public that people are going to be paying for.
All right.
What will you raise the taxes by?
Okay.
The old way of doing budget that have failed us for a decade is to pick a number, okay? I've been on the budget committee for 10 years. And you know how you build a budget? You start with people's needs, start with people's services, and then build it, okay? I talked about a modest tax increase, as of course and then there is exemption for seniors and low-income folks. I also talked about other kinds of funding. Those people that can afford to buy a new home that is $5, $10, $20 million, you know what? With a private squash court, they can afford to pay a little bit more. And the housing speculators that dare to leave their homes empty in the middle of a housing crisis, let's go after them. Rather than 1%, 3% vacancy tax rate.
Mark, you now have a minute to respond to that.
Thank you. My question was about homeowners. When I am going north, south, east, and west and talking to homeowners, They are afraid of you being the mayor because their concern is, quote, you said in the past, huge tax increases. Now I see that you've shifted your narrative just a little bit to make it a little bit more palatable, but the reality is, you have said in the past, huge tax increases. The question is very simple. When we're dealing with homeowners, I'm not talking about squash courts. I don't know how many people here have squash courts. Just your average homeowner in the city of Toronto has concerns about you in the seat because of your history and discussion about taxes and how high they are. So would you please give the opportunity to the public to let them know how huge you're going to raise the property taxes?
You know, in the maybe we can start again. In the 30 years I've been elected, 14 years as city councillor, never applied a huge tax increase. Mr. Saunders needs to listen more carefully. My word is modest, not huge. Okay? Modest means that people that can afford it. Okay? And I already talked about different ways of raising funds. And because I have experience as a city councillor, I know how to put a budget together.
All right. All right. Now I think it's time to move on. Mitzi Hunter,
Okay.
Pick your challenger.
Well, my question is to Olivia because I have not heard the answer to this question. And you know, I have respect for you for the years of service that you've done, but I don't believe that you should be quietly posting without being clear with Torontonians about what it is going to cost. And you know, some of the information that you say is not available, all estimates for inflation are 3.5%. So what are you going to cost the taxpayers of Toronto?
Well, every one of my proposals have been fully costed. And I invite you to look at it at oliviachow.ca. Let me give you an example. Building 25,000 units of affordable housing. And I said that it would cost $400 million, but most of it comes for down payment over 8 years. Most of it would come from the federal housing program that all of you are relying on in your figures. And it would be a third of the 1% tax increase, amount to about $11 per year for you. And I also have costed the anti-eviction program, which will allow people to own their homes as a cooperative or market or land trust, so they could have permanent homes. You know, this is what tax is about. It's about providing service for each other, so we have a strong, strong city that is caring and affordable.
All right. Now, Mitzi, you have 1 minute to...
Well, this is not good enough. Like, it just really is not good enough. It's a complete non-answer. You're not being straight with the people of Toronto. And, you know, I don't know if there's something there that you don't want to tell them, but I believe that you have to come clean and you have to be straight. You know, I've committed to putting forward my costing fully and transparently before voting begins. And I have done that. I have committed to that, and I have done that. It's available on my website, mitziformayor.ca. You can download my complete plan as well as the costing. I have a fair way of providing the payment for the proposals that I'm making to Torontonians, and also making sure that people pay less who cannot afford to do that. So it shows that it can be done, but there's no plan, there's no transparency, and you know, I think that Torontonians deserve better when they select their mayor.
All right, Olivia, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah. I already said that I would, I'll give you a number. The speculator vacancy tax, you know how much they'll raise? $45 million, because it's 3% rather than 1%. We won't let them get away with it. You know what that would fund? That would fund upbuilding the rent banks. It would triple so that we can provide some financial support for tenants.
What about the other?
And then tripling the EPIC program.
All right.
Provide support for tenants, so they won't get evicted.
Thank you. Josh Mallow, before you wait,
Yes. Yeah, she did
Up to you.
second. She did 2 rounds, and I did a 30-second.
Right. That's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
We're doing this together.
It's just that okay. So Josh Matlow,
Yes.
before you start, the choice is yours. But I did want to emphasize that you could choose any candidate on stage. Not only that.
I'll take door number.
Not only that.
Wait.
But you can choose any question you want. We don't all have to ask the exact same question.
It's okay.
No,
I thought I was number 2 in the
But this is not my part. This is Josh Mallow's part. So go ahead.
Why, thank you, Ed. By the way, this doesn't have to be, it's not that complicated. Leadership is about being straight up with people. If you go to votematlow.ca, I have exactly what I'm going to tax, exactly what I'm going to save. It's all right there in black and white, every single policy, okay? So it's actually easy to be transparent if you choose to be. However, I read in the Toronto Star, a wonderful paper, by the way, Jordan, that, that Mark Saunders said that he's going to balance our budget by a whole bunch of cuts, including IT, that is part of cyber safety. So I'm just wondering, Mark, rather than just say you're going to cut and find the gravy train and all that kind of stuff, can you please tell us exactly what you're going to cut and how much and how it's going to affect residents' daily services?
Exactly. I think we get the gist.
Thank you.
Mark Saunders, 1 minute.
Thank you.
And if you could itemize it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the soundbite, Mr. Matlow. Experienced leadership is about being accountable for the taxpayers' dollars. My role and function as mayor is to provide the maximum amount of value for the dollar that you spend. I'm not talking about zeroing a balance. I'm talking about making sure that we are accountable for the dollars first before we start asking. That is key and that is critical. It's not starting by asking first and then getting what you think you're going to get. We look at how the dollars are spent right now, and it is not being done wisely. I want to make sure that the funds are for the people first, that prioritization is key. When we talk about homelessness, when we talk about affordability, when we talk about building houses, these things require fiscal accountability and making sure that you can pay for what you're talking for. But first, you have to explain how you spend every single dollar first.
Okay. Josh, you have 1 minute to
with all due respect, I'm hearing the same hyperbole that I do from Doug Ford, which it's true, which is just like, I'm just gonna cut and everything's gonna be great. The reality is people rely on basic services, whether rec programs for their kids, transit, access to housing, shelters for the most vulnerable, and student nutrition programs, so many things. What are you going to cut and how is it going to affect our lives, Mark? Just say it out loud.
Okay.
You can do it.
I appreciate Mr. Matlow. He has a way of arguing.
No, but Torontonians deserve to know.
Okay, this is his turn
if I have
to
an opportunity, how long do I have?
I'll give you the time.
17 seconds?
No, I'll give you the full 30 seconds
great.
as long as you start talking now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So here's the bottom line. When we talk about fiscal accountability, we wake up in the morning and we hear that we are purchasing crack pipes and meth pipes. I don't think that that is something that we need to have as a priority. Wow. People right now, we're walking around people outside right now. We have normalized disorder. We have normalized dignity for people that are out on the streets. I want to make sure that the monies are spent properly, that we are accountable for every single person in the city. And we have to make sure the money is spent with treatment and rehabilitation to make everybody have an opportunity of having the best quality of life that they possibly can have.
All right. Okay. Olivia,
my questions to somebody?
it's your question.
Wow.
I don't think you're actually supposed to ask yourself a question. If
Darn.
So there are other options. You go ahead.
My question is to Mr. Brad Bradford. You said yesterday that years of inaction by city government have left Toronto in crisis. Now, you were on the executive committee, you had power, but under your watch, the time to approve anything grew. Market housing, affordable housing, doesn't matter. It now takes 2-3 years to get anything approved. Your approach is not working.
Is there a question?
If you have your chance, what are you doing all this time in the last 4 years?
Brad Bradford.
So I'm going to try my best to answer your question, and I hope when I ask mine, you actually stand for the people of Toronto and answer it. The question was about approval timelines, and they are certainly way too long. Toronto has some of the longest approval timelines in the entire country when it gets to getting shovels in the ground and getting housing built faster. And that's why I'm committed to standing up the Development and Growth Division so that we can get shovels in the ground faster, build more housing for more people in more neighborhoods. And you're right. The bureaucracy can be very challenging. It can be very frustrating. And that's why your solution to build more bureaucracy, to build more housing, is exactly the wrong direction to go. We don't need more bureaucracy. We need to cut the red tape. We need to streamline the process. We need to work with the not-for-profit sector and remove the barriers to make sure we can deliver housing, all types of housing, but especially affordable housing for Torontonians.
But Brad, you are the head of the Housing Committee, no? And you were, being on the executive means that you are the right-hand person of the mayor. You have a lot of power. Surely you should have been able to do some of the work you talked about, making the approval process shorter. But under your watch, it has grown longer, especially in the planning department, and you're a planner. So if you can't get that job done, why would you deserve a promotion?
That's right, planners know, and shout out to all the TMU planners in the room here tonight. It's great to see you guys. I am an urban planner, and since I became the chair of Planning and Housing Committee 5 months ago, we have done more housing policy in the City of Toronto in the past 5 months than done in the past 5 years. I have led and legalized rooming houses, something that you opposed when you were on City Council decades and decades ago.
Didn't know that.
I have legalized multiplex so that we have more housing opportunities in more neighborhoods. And I'm standing up as of right zoning on our avenues so we actually build mid-rise buildings where the transit is and stop opposing them. That's real leadership, Olivia.
All right, thank you. And then I get the feeling we get to keep going because Brad Bradford, it's your time to choose a candidate and ask your question.
Well, no surprise, and it's going to be a little bit awkward because I don't know how many times you can not answer the same question, but I'm going to give you one more opportunity here. I think the count is 3. Let's make it 4. In a City News interview this week, you refused to answer the question, but you said you were going to raise taxes. You won't tell people how much. I have reviewed your spending commitments that you have put forward in your platform. I put that number at 20% tax hike. You are going to rocket tax bills. It's not just seniors that cannot afford it. It's young families in Toronto that can't afford it. So the question that I will ask, because you keep dodging the number, what is the maximum percentage that you are comfortable with as mayor in skyrocketing everyone's taxes here in Toronto? What's the maximum percentage that you'll do?
Mr. Bradford, that 20%, you're just making it up. Here are some real numbers. 0, which is the amount of things that was corrected in your last statement and that is in your website. And you know, speaking about numbers, how much more families have to pay a year to ride the TTC because of the fare increase that you put in on council? Is $220 a year for a family. That is the money that they could use.
You're going to raise taxes by more than $700 a year on average for Torontonians. That's what 20% is. So if you want to talk about making life more unaffordable for families, let's look at your 20% tax hike, Olivia.
Your math has been discredited by everyone.
Why don't you give us some alternative?
One at a time. One at a time. You'll have a chance.
The 20% that you just made up is bad math. I've been on the budget committee for 10 years, as I said, and I was known to be good at budgeting.
Okay. Mr. Bradford?
You were known to be good at rocketing taxes, and it sounds like you're going to keep doing that. Let's look at the 20% number. And everyone at home, I want you to listen to this carefully because this is what's coming if Olivia Chow is your mayor. A 1.83% increase to the city building fund, 2% for your housing plan. That's $100 million of city dollars. You're counting on $300 million from other levels of government if you can get it. 5% for the decommissioning of the Scarborough RT and building the Scarborough Busway. 3.7% to restore TTC service levels unsupported by current ridership levels. You have also promised to, quote, significantly improve transit service. I don't actually know what that means, but let's put it at 5 points. 0.25% overestimating the municipal land transfer tax. It doesn't include an increase to account for inflation. It doesn't include your plan to establish Toronto as the largest home builder in the entire country, which you're proposing. And it doesn't include pay raises that you are going to be offering as we go into our largest collective bargaining negotiations this year. So there you go, folks. That's Olivia Chow's 20% tax hike. And I guess the question remains, which of the promises are you going to break if you're not going to do a 20% tax hike?
All right. Olivia, you have 30 seconds.
Brad, you're making it up again.
Well,
you know, 30, wait, hang on, here's the number. 1% tax increase is $38 million, okay? And the capital budget to build the Scarborough RT is, what is it, for a busway is $60 million. How did you, wait, hang on a second. That's already in the budget. Come on, read your budget statement, please. That is already in the budget that is built by the City of Toronto, by your financial analysis.
That you haven't read the budget.
Please,
all right,
read your budget.
All right, that's a lively conversation.
It's another non-answer.
Great, isn't it? Okay. I think that's the end of this segment of the debate. All right. So now we're going to move on, and because we've been through the rotation a couple of times, there was another draw. So for this last couple of questions, the order changes, in which, but don't worry, I'll tell you which order it is. So this question comes to us via video by a TMU student.
Ani, Tanzi, Kwe. Hello and bonjour, mayoral candidates. My name is Cody Anthony, and I'm an urban Indigenous student right here at the Toronto Metropolitan University. I've called Toronto my home for nearly 10 years now. I love it here. But unfortunately, with the affordability crisis, it's looking less and less likely that I will be able to stay. According to a research team at the Toronto Metropolitan University, Toronto is the 6th most expensive city in the world in terms of rental housing. And our Indigenous and our racialized populations are disproportionately affected by this crisis. So I want to know, if you are elected as the next mayor of Toronto, how are you going to address the affordability crisis in our beautiful city? Thank you.
All right. So, by the terms of our second random draw in the back, Bradford, you get to go first on this question.
Lots of time at the podium here. This is good. Listen, affordability, the most expensive bill that everybody pays every month is either their rent or their mortgage. And the reality is it's never been more expensive to live in this city. If Olivia Chow increases taxes by 20%, that's going to make it even harder for new Canadians, for young families, and for seniors. But how are we going to build more housing? And the question there about rental, purpose-built rental. We haven't built rental in this city at a sizable scale for decades. Now, it's a complicated issue, and there's a lot of things that go into that. Tax policy, access to financing. But what can the city do? The city can reduce the red tape and streamline the process. The city can make sure that if we actually want to see purpose-built rental, we incentivize that. We need to look at the development charges and put those on the table so that it's actually more affordable to build the type of housing we want to see. We need to work with the provincial and federal government to make sure that there is HST relief on housing, because they have made tens of billions of dollars over the past number of years, and only 1/6 of that comes back to municipalities. Make it easier to build rental.
Thank you, Brad. Olivia, you get to go second on this question.
Okay. One of my volunteers, Dahlia, is exactly in the same situation of this student, just graduated from university. And by paying her rent, it's $1,600 a month, basement, share with several friends. And she doesn't have much left by the end of the month. Fresh fruits and canned soup is a luxury. This cannot continue. The old way have not worked. Speaking about numbers, Mr. Bradford needs to remember that there are 10,000 people that are homeless. There are 90,000 households waiting for affordable housing. We have to build housing. And under my plan, I will build 25,000 rent-controlled rental houses so that someone that is just graduating from university have a chance to start their life.
All right. Mark Saunders?
Thank you. So a couple of days ago, while I was doing a press release, I had an opportunity for a lady who stopped and wanted to speak to me. And she said, I've done everything that I was supposed to do. I hold 3 degrees, I have a fiance, but we're debating whether or not we're going to be staying in the city because we can't afford it. City government has let them down. Supply is the #1 issue. We have not built. We've spoke about it for a long period of time, we've not built. My plan is simple. It is to cut that red tape to make sure those approvals go within 1 year. It is to create an environment where people that will be building will build, not to create the opportunity for government to build. Government has failed. When we look at the plan where government properties were open for 4 years, not a single shovel has gone into the ground. Creating that healthy environment will restore prosperity and give opportunities for more people to have opportunities to rent at the right prices. But it starts with action, and it starts with effective leadership, new leadership, to make those opportunities happen when it comes to developing and building more affordable places to stay.
Okay, thank you. Josh Matlow, you're next.
There's no one magic bullet when it comes to affordability, even though it is the most important priority that I think most people face or need to have faced every single day. Because most people are struggling, whether it be just making the rent or even just having a dream to own their own home. And that's why, rather than having the Housing Now approach, which failed, Anna Bailau and our former mayor championed that, because the private development industry wouldn't put the equity up front. They wouldn't take that risk. I'm going to move forward with building housing on our properties because we can move forward and then also keep the profits and put it toward building more housing. I also want to make sure that if you're an older adult, you can age in place. That in our neighborhoods, whether you're a young person or somebody who wants to live in their home till their very last days, you have options with your home so you can have different units. You can have different options within a neighborhood so that you can live there and others can have access to a home that they can finally afford. There are many things we need to do. It's not just one.
Thank you. Anna Bailau.
Thank you. You know, I talked about when I came here when I was 15, you know, the sense of opportunity that I felt, that sense of opportunity moves me every single day. And it moves me to run for mayor because I want every 15-year-old, every person in here to have that sense of opportunity. And that comes with affordability. And the way that you create affordability, absolutely, with housing, with transit, and you know what? With a city budget that works. And we need a mayor that is going to work with the provincial and federal government. And that is the question here. Which candidate has the experience, the track record to deliver, to make sure we tackle the $46 billion of capital and operating backlog that we're going to have over the 10 years so we continue to have a city of opportunity? You can vote for Olivia Chow, politics of opposition, taxes spent, or you can vote for Mark Saunders, who'd be a puppet of Doug Ford, or you can vote for somebody that has the track record, the experience, stand up for the city, and on day one, roll up the sleeves and get the job done.
Okay. And finally, Mitzi Hunter.
Okay. So, you know, my niece Jada, she's also a student at university. She's at Queen's. I was chatting with her about, you know, I asked her, are you going to buy a home someday? And she said no. And, you know, it really was surprising to me because this wasn't, you know, my vision of the future when I was growing up. You know, I thought that that was something that I could aspire to do. And young people today just are losing that sense of the ability to do that. So, you know, I have a comprehensive plan and it's fully costed. Looking at how do we build more affordable housing, utilizing the city lands so that we're not giving away those profits to developers like the others here, but we're actually building 77% more affordable units.
Under my plan, there will be student zones as well, so we can have more student housing around campuses, and students will be able to afford to pay their rent and be able to buy food at the same time. So this is something that we have to take action on, and I have a plan to do that.
Thank you, Missy. Okay. Before we move to our last sort of formal question, we have a couple of minutes because you guys have been so good about the time, and so your reward for that is even harder questions in a tighter time frame. I have a couple big questions with very small answers. So I ask each of you one-word answers, yes or no. Is there any scenario in which you would use the strong mayor power to pass a bylaw with less than a majority of city council support? Olivia Chow, yes or no?
No.
Okay. Mark?
Yes.
Josh?
No.
Anna?
No.
Mitzi?
No.
And Brad?
Yes.
All right. I realize that this is a complicated, nuanced topic, but if you were forced to pick one explanation or the other, would you say Toronto's budget troubles are more of a spending problem or more of a revenue problem? Just pick the one that applies more, and you don't get to explain your answer. Start with you, Mark.
Spending.
Okay. Josh?
Mostly revenue.
Okay. Anna?
Mostly revenue.
Mitzi?
Revenue.
Brad?
Spending.
Okay. And Olivia?
Revenue.
Okay. Car, bike, walk, transit. In one word, how do you personally most often travel to work? Josh?
Transit.
Transit? Anna?
Transit and car.
Okay. Mitzi?
50-50 probably.
Well, I'm from Scarborough, so car, but
Okay.
sometimes the go.
I said one word, right? Brad?
Biked here tonight, bikes.
Olivia?
Biked here tonight.
Okay, and Mark?
Car.
Okay. So this one's a little bit trickier so I'll say what I want here is I want you to sum up what you love about Toronto, Hogtown, the T-Dot, the 6, in 6 words or less. So I'm just going to give you a second to think before I spring it on you because it's a tough one. So, one sentence. Anna?
Sorry?
6
You
words
said
or
you
less.
thought you were giving us some time.
I gave you time. Mark's ready to go.
Yeah. I love the people.
All right.
Diversity.
Anna?
Diversity.
Diversity. Okay. Mitzi?
I thought we got 6 words.
6. You have up to 6 words.
Oh, okay.
She's using one word.
All right, so food, people, trees, water, culture.
Hey. All right. Brad?
Oh, we each get 6. I thought you were...
Yeah. So you have 5 left, Anna, if you want to go now.
We need to get you some training, Ed.
I think I was clear. You have 5 words left. I'll come back to you. Brad?
I'm good. I'm going to get you 5 more.
I love Toronto's access to opportunity.
All right. Olivia?
Diverse, creative, nature, people, and entrepreneurial.
Okay. And Josh?
People, ravines, water, culture, and arts.
All right. And you have 5 words left, Anna. This is your one chance.
I have to say people as well. I know it was used, but people is the best thing we have in this city.
Have one
it's
more
what
word.
makes the city.
Okay.
I counted neighborhoods.
Neighborhoods. Okay.
Well done. Well done.
This is like the part of the debate we all agree on. None of us can count, but we can all agree on the answers. So the final question of the night, I want to zoom out a bit from specific issues because, you've been telling us about your platforms all night, which is really important to everybody making up their decisions. But we don't elect a platform. We elect a person to be a leader for the city. So with these strong mayor powers, you're going to have exceptional new powers, the ability to pass bylaws with the support of only 1/3 of council, to veto majority decisions by council. So what makes you the kind of leader we need now? How are you going to lead and be responsive and accountable to the residents of Toronto? I think, oh boy, we've been around and around. Mitzi, we're going to start with you.
Okay. So, you know, from my perspective, leadership is really about people. It's about being with the people, listening to the people, you know, leading by walking around, seeing what needs to be done. When I was first elected in my riding in Scarborough-Guildwood, there was a school I visited, and the kindergarten kids didn't have a playground. They were playing in a concrete area, fenced in, to keep them safe, of course. And you know, I brought the community together to build them a playground. Every time I go by, it's in the shape of a castle, and I remember that. You know, I've also been a cabinet minister responsible for education and large portfolios. And whether it's large or it's small, at the center of my decision is what is best for people. I'm running for mayor of this city to make sure that we have a city that works for everyone everywhere, and that you have the same services that you can count on. And I'm asking for your support. Join me so that we can fix the 6 together.
Thank you. All right, Brad Bradford?
Sure. Thanks very much, and thank you all for being here tonight. I am going to fix the 6 by protecting the services and securing Toronto's future with less talk and more action. And there's your debate bingo card. You know, leadership is so important here in the city of Toronto because I think a lot of folks out there feel like Toronto is at a breaking point. It's never been less affordable to live in this city. It's never felt less safe when we're riding transit, and it has never been harder to get around. I will be a strong mayor of action on those issues. You know, my experience on council, I certainly haven't been there as long as some of the folks on this stage, but I also haven't been the author of the problems that we're seeing. I'm an urban planner by training. I know how to fix what needs fixing. And, you know, the time for endless debate, deferral, and delay is over. We have to move forward on affordability. We have to build more housing. We have to make sure that we're creating a city of opportunity for all the people who bet on Toronto every single day. I want to make sure that they can realize their hopes and dreams. On June 26th, vote for Brad Bradford. Thank you very much.
All right. Next, Olivia Chow.
Doug Ford thinks he runs Toronto because the previous mayor and city council let him. That won't happen under my watch because Doug Ford doesn't run Toronto. You do, we do. We are the people that have the power to make the difference. It's not just about one mayor, not one city council, all of us together, because we are stronger together. And when Doug Ford said he's for the people, we will make sure he listens to the voices of the people. I have the track record of getting things done. Young subway line, cars, new cars back then. We need more of those. A new deal with childcare that finally became more affordable and eventually $10 a day. We got that because we worked together. That is where power lies. Let's do this together and create a better city and a caring, affordable, and safe city.
Thank you. Mark Saunders? Mark, you're next.
First off, thank you so much for being here. You know, I worked public service for 38 years in this city, but not public service with a pen and pencil or paper, but actually being there in all corners of this city. Put my life on the line a multitude of times, and I'd do it again for a stranger because I care. I care about the city. I care about the direction that it's going in. I have seen what hope can do, and if you're a part of that solution and inspired people through hope, amazing things can happen. If affordability is an issue, you will fail drastically if Olivia Chow is chosen. But if you choose a leader that is an experienced leader, that knows what the solutions are, working in collaboration with all communities, it's not a one-size-fits-all city. That I've learned. But I've learned that the passion and vision and dreams of people can be made. And if you have the right leader in place, in that mayor's seat, that understands the city and how to spend the dollars properly to reach success, to live that Canadian dream, on June 26th is Mark Saunders. Please put your vote where it counts. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Josh Schmatlow.
My wife, Melissa, and my daughter, Molly, and I are immersed in the life of our community. and we care deeply about this city. And you know that I've been leading the charge on many of the most important challenges at City Hall for the past decade. Olivia Chow, with all due respect, I like her, she has an amazing legacy, but the contemporary challenges that we are having to address right now are different. You know, Doug Ford is a bully, and we need to have a leader in the mayor's office who won't just say, I'm going to work with him. Doug Ford needs to demonstrate he can work with us. We need to, thank you. We need to challenge the issues when it comes to safety, affordability, livability. We need to actually understand how to go on that path to fixing our problems. I'm the only one on this stage who has been up front, who has shown you what I'm going to do and shown you that I can get there, but I need your support.
No.
All right, thank you.
I have a plan too.
And finally, Anna Bailão.
Thank you. So who will be the best champion to get a fair deal for the City of Toronto? That is the question. Are you going to have somebody that is going to be allowing Doug Ford to be the premier and the mayor of Toronto? Or are you going to have somebody to allow the City Hall to turn into the official opposition to the premier and the prime minister? You can't have that. You need pragmatism. You need common sense. And that is what I bring to the table. I have the experience that has a track record of bringing billions to the city for housing. I have the support of council. I know how to get things done through council. 5 of my colleagues have already came out and endorsed me. I've brought MPs to the table. I have the support of labor. I have the support of business. That's what we need, somebody that can bring this city together to get a fair deal. Because you know what? If we want to create opportunity, there's one thing that people really appreciated during the pandemic, is governments working together when there is a crisis and make sure that we come out of it even better. And that is what we need to do right now. We need to come out even better together.
All right, thank you. That's all the time we have for tonight's debate. I want to thank these candidates for participating tonight. I also want to thank you, the audience, for being a part of this event, both in this room and at home watching online, as well as the organizers who put it together, the community of each of our organizations who helped form these questions and select topics and shape the event tonight. This is the end of the night, but it's not the end of the campaign. Election Day is June 26th. I encourage everybody here to make a plan to vote now. I also want to remind you that Election Day is not the end of the democratic process, right? Each of us, not just the mayor and the council, but every Toronto resident can be part of shaping a better city by being active, informed, and involved citizens of our city and the communities we live in, because democracy is not an event, it's a process that works better if we all participate. Thank you again, and good night. Thank you.
You are watching special coverage right here on CP24 tonight with Toronto's mayoral by-election less than 4 weeks away. 6 mayoral candidates went head-to-head in another debate tonight, this one co-hosted by TMU.